Rachel Doerrie is jumping on the podcast to give some insight into Taylor Hall as well as some advanced stats information. And the Boston Bruins are getting ready to take on the Vegas Golden Knights. It is Locked On Boston Bruins. Let's get into it.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be, as well as take a look around the NHL. Today is Tuesday, December 14th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. The podcast is free and available on all platforms, so please do hit that subscribe button. Each new episode will be automatically added to your feed for you to download, listen, and enjoy. The podcast is also available on YouTube, so search up the Locked On Bruins channel, subscribe there as well, and you can get the podcast in video form. As I mentioned off the top, I'm going to be joined in a moment by Rachel Doerrie. She is a friend from hockey Twitter for quite some time now. She currently works for York University up in Toronto as the Director of Advanced Performance, using statistical analysis to create game reports, stat packages, team projections. She previously worked for the New Jersey Devils during Taylor Hall's time with the team as well. And I'm very excited to catch up with her and get some insight on Taylor Hall and the Boston Bruins. A couple notes from Monday here as the Bruins currently on the ice getting ready for tonight's game against the Vegas Golden Knights. And head coach Bruce Cassidy back in the mix after missing 2 weeks after entering COVID-19 protocol. He said it took him back to when he was coaching in Providence, watching Bruins games with interest. And he said he had some symptoms, including bad headaches. And, he was also feeling a bit lethargic. But he is back to it. He's fully vaccinated, so it was a breakthrough case. And, he said there was a lot of positives from the Bruins road trip, obviously. Joe Sacco did a great job in his absence, getting the guys ready to play and kind of raising his profile as the former Colorado Avalanche head coach may one day be looking for another head coaching position. He pointed to Linus Ullmark's performance, saying he came up huge for the Bruins. The most important part of the game is goaltending, and if it's not where you need it to be, it can be deflating. But if they're here for you, when the play breaks down, it's obviously a boost. Ullmark, both games against Florida, Calgary, and Edmonton was outstanding. Cassidy said, bailed the Bruins out on breakdowns, allowed the guys to sort of put it behind, keep playing, and not get negative thoughts going into the game. Swayman in Vancouver, he said, was also great. Now, on Monday, there were some testing issues, quote unquote, with the Bruins coming back from Calgary. The Flames in the midst of a COVID-19 outbreak. A bunch of guys weren't on the ice, and they are back on the ice now, among them Ullmark, Connor Clifton, John Moore. But here on Tuesday morning, one player has entered COVID-19 protocols, and that is winger Craig Smith. Very quick announcement from the Bruins. They're announcing on December 14th that Craig Smith has been placed in the NHL's COVID-19 protocol. So that is not great, obviously. Hopefully it's, a situation where he is asymptomatic and that it does not spread to other Bruins. But again, the Calgary Flames, who the Bruins played on Saturday in the midst of a pretty big COVID-19 outbreak, the Carolina Hurricanes, who played the Flames last Thursday, also dealing with COVID. So, yeah, not a great start to the week for the Boston Bruins. We'll see who comes in and plays in Smith's place tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. One guy who has stepped up recently has been Trent Frederick. He's been back playing center role, his natural position, recorded 2 assists in the win over Calgary. He said it was nice to get on the scoreboard, good to help the team statistically and on the score sheet. Anytime you win, it feels good, but he's not used to getting a lot of points. So that obviously felt good as well. Cassidy said he seems to be moving his feet more in the middle and parts of his game that they want to clean up, but he's done a good job and looks like he'll stay down the middle for the time being. He needs to work on his face-offs, he admitted, but, that's hopefully something that can come in practice, and he can kind of get back to that natural position. Now, one part of his game that he knows is lacking is a bit of that nastiness. He pointed to the game against Nashville where Patrice Bergeron was pushed around quite a bit, resulted in getting his nose broken after a nasty high hit from Philip Forsberg. Bergeron was very angry at the time, and there was no response from the Bruins on the ice either. Brad Marchand was out with a suspension. Frederick said the Forsberg hit was pretty dirty. Unfortunately, it's hard sometimes because he was not out there with Forsberg. So he's got to go and try after one of their star players, maybe like a Roman Josi. He said it's Bergie. We got to stick up for him. Probably should have done more there. If he's being honest, anytime somebody like that gets hit, they need to make sure it's their identity to stand up for them. The Bruins addressed things in the locker room in the aftermath of Bergeron getting knocked around, even in the Nashville game and in subsequent games. And hopefully the Bruins will, stand up for Bergeron more, not necessarily, gooning around, but you can't allow the opposition to take liberties with Patrice Bergeron for sure. So, following up on the Craig Smith news, a quick look at the lines in the morning skate. Right now, this is per Fluto Shinzawa. We have Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak on the top line, Hall, Coyle, Jake DeBrusk coming up and playing the right side in Smith's absence, Haula, Nosek, Foligno on the third line, Bleed, Frederick, Lazar on the fourth line with Carson Kuhlman as the extra skater, Forbort, McAvoy, Grzelcyk, Riley skating with Carlo, and then Moore Clifton on the third pair. Jack Ashawn returned to Providence, and Jakobs Borrell still on the shelf. And it looks like Jeremy Swayman might be getting the start in this one. All right, before I am joined by Rachel, just a quick word about Omaha Steaks. What's a holiday memory that you have? Perhaps it involves grilling some steaks. The holidays are around the corner, and finding the perfect gift is tricky. Omaha Steaks makes it easy to send friends and family an unforgettable gift guaranteed to be loved. Go to Omaha Steaks right now and enter code NHL into the search bar to order the perfect gift package. For $99.99, you'll get 24 entrees like the world-famous bacon-wrapped filet mignons, chicken breasts, sides, desserts, and so much more. And when you use code NHL, you'll get an additional 8 burgers for free with your order. Now, there's a lot of shortages and shipping delays right now, so don't wait. Order that package today at omahasteaks.com. Get those free 8 burgers when entering code NHL. Achieving gift greatness with Omaha Steaks is possible this year. Incredible flavor, incredible value, and 100% guaranteed. omahasteaks.com, keyword NHL. Also, just want to mention Boost Mobile. You can switch to Boost Mobile and save money right now. Get 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line and a free 5G phone when you switch, so you can get all the latest episodes of Locked On Boston Bruins, all on one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save at Boost Mobile. Free phones limited to new customers, 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. See boostmobile.com for details. All right, I am so excited to have Rachel on the podcast today. We've been hockey Twitter friends for I don't even know how long, and even had the opportunity to get together and hang out when I was working at the Score in Toronto. A lot's happened since then, but thanks for jumping on, Rachel. It's been a long time coming to have you on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. I've been checking out the pod, and I mean, you're on the lineup of shows for me to listen to, and I just love that you're doing so well. And yeah, it's kind of nuts. We met at the Score office, and now like I pretty much live like right near there.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
like I can walk by there like all the time when I'm walking towards favorite restaurants or whatnot. It's super
Nice.
close for me, so I kind of think about it when I walk by. I'm like, oh look, that's like where I went to meet Ian, and
Oh, that's
it's
fun.
yeah. So I'm doing my master's. I'm studying the NHL draft. I'm doing some analytics and sports science.
Very nice.
And I've got the Staff and Graph podcast. So
Yeah,
that's
very cool.
yeah.
I guess that office is, well, they're moving offices, I guess, now that they expanding and all that. But I always miss that Wilbur Mexican restaurant that's right down the street from there. That was my favorite.
Wilbur Mexicana is the absolute
So good.
gem.
Yes.
I don't know what this says about me, but I'm on a first name basis with the staff there.
That's amazing. I would go there, yeah, I don't know, too often. I just couldn't pass it up. So good.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast today. First of all, I was just saying in the first segment that Craig Smith has been placed in COVID-19 protocol, so that's not great for the Bruins. I guess we'll start maybe with Jake DeBrusk. He's got a trade request going on for a couple weeks now. It looks like he's going to play on the second line tonight with Taylor Hall and Charlie Coyle in Smith's absence. First of all, kind of from your experience working at the NHL level, how disruptive is, I don't know if you came across this scenario in your time there, but how disruptive is a trade request, and kind of where do you see Jake DeBrusk's trade value at right now for the Bruins?
I think every trade request is different, and it really depends on how disruptive the player who's made the trade request is. So if you have somebody like Jack Eichel, who basically is like, not only am I making a trade request, I am not playing and not stepping foot in your facilities until you trade me. Like, it's just not happening. Then it can be extremely disruptive. Or even if you have a player who's very like disgruntled, and you could tell Pierre-Luc Dubois comes to mind, where like there's that video of that shift where he may as well have been playing pond hockey at that point. It can be exceptionally disruptive. With Jake DeBrusk, what I've noticed is he said, you know what, it's not really working here, and I really would like to go somewhere else. But he's played really good hockey since he's made that request. And that actually helps the situation, because other teams see, okay, even when he's upset, he's still capable of playing really good hockey. He's not going to be a bad guy in the room. He's not going to be disruptive to what our team is doing. And I think he's helping his trade value here. Now he's going to get a chance on the second line with Taylor Hall, who I think, quite honestly, I kind of like that line. Like, I think they could do some damage based on stylistically how they fit. And so if he continues to kind of play well, and you know what, maybe put up the odd number, and he continues to contribute in a bottom six role when he's there, it depends on what Boston wants. You can go one of two ways. If you want an asset now, you're probably wanting, let's just use Edmonton, for example, because they need some winger help, and I think that's a good fit. I think you're probably looking at someone like Warren Fogle coming the other way, who I think would be a pretty good fit in Boston, to be honest. And that's like a now player. But if you want futures, you're not going to get a first for Jake DeBrusk anymore. No. Like, you're not. I think you could conceivably get like a second and a fifth, though. Like, I think that's a realistic expectation. But I wouldn't be surprised, given where Boston is with the perfection line and where they are in their careers, if they do opt for someone that can help now. So somebody like a Warren Fogle, that could be interesting. The other interesting situation, and I don't know how the salary would necessarily work. I think there'd have to be other pieces involved. I think Boston could really benefit from potentially doing a deal that surrounds Vladimir Tarasenko.
Wow.
And I would include Jake DeBrusk in a deal that brings back that level of scoring.
Yeah. I would assume that would have to include like Jack Stanika at least as well, or
you've got to look at the salary portion of it too, right? You hope St. Louis retains because they're probably going to have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you look at Boston, the whole talk is secondary scoring. Well, Vladimir Tarasenko is pretty good at scoring.
Yeah.
And so I think if you can maybe have a package where you get Jake DeBrusk out, he gets to St. Louis, that might be a bit better of a situation. You've got some younger players there. He kind of fits with the mold there. I think you could have something there, and then it brings back a player that can really help Boston. That's something, if I'm the Bruins, I would explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would be very into that, of course. That would be amazing. I've kind of been pounding like the Dylan Strome in Chicago, or you just look at guys who have been scratched lately or pushed down. You mentioned Edmonton. I think Kyler Yamamoto, he's been bumped down the lineup a little bit as well. That's a guy that has come up lately. Kevin LeBanc in San Jose. These are names that have come up.
Kevin LeBanc could be a good fit.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see what the package is, how long it takes, whether it's before the freeze or afterwards. I'm not a huge fan of one of the issues for him last year was kind of bouncing around from the left side to the right side where it's not his natural position. But if he's playing with Hall and Coyle, then yeah, he's well positioned to continue to succeed despite this. Founded in 2009, Stance Apparel represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborations for the ultimate in style and self-expression. Because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters most than fitting in. Those who feel good, do good. Go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. I wanted to talk to you about Taylor Hall, who you're well familiar with from his time in New Jersey. I believe you were there when he
won the Hart.
Won the Hart. Yeah, that season.
Yep.
So for me, coming in last season, I was really blown away by Hall. He was a lot better off the puck than I had remembered. And yeah, creating offensively. This season, a lot of people are starting to look at his production, the contract that he got, the job security, saying, well, he's kind of locked in for 4 years. There's not really much pressure on him. He's kind of a bit of a passenger. First of all, from what you know of Taylor Hall, what are you sure that he is capable of at this point? Is he like an elite winger at this point? Is he kind of that secondary scoring that we just talked about? What is he capable of doing still at this point in his career, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get back to the Hart Trophy. There was a lot of factors that went into that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was he was the premier guy on the power play. And John Hines basically told him, you're playing 90 seconds at least of every power play.
Right.
That isn't going to happen in Boston.
Right.
And so right there, you can pretty much chop every power play point he got in New Jersey out. And I want to say, do not quote me on this, I think it was like 38% of his production, so close to 40%.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem right there. Yeah. And I know that Boston did their homework on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you're looking at it, you look at Taylor Hall even strength. And what are his strengths? He is not a scorer. He is a transporter of the puck, which means he needs to play with someone who can score,
right.
A la Craig Smith, a la Jake DeBrusk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of surprised Boston hasn't tried this yet for like an extended period of time because Jake DeBrusk can really shoot the puck.
Mm-hmm.
And like when Taylor was playing with Jesper Bratt, I mean, people are now finding out how good Jesper Bratt is, but like he could always shoot the puck. And when Taylor would get Brad or the puck would find its way to the net, and then Nico Heischer's banging in the rebounds or whatever the case may be. So I think with Taylor Hall, what you should expect is at even strength, he's going to be the guy that goes offense or defensive zone to offensive zone, carrying the puck. That's kind of his role there. He's really good at creating off the rush, and an area that I don't think he's used particularly well in Boston. I don't know if it's a Boston way of playing or what the deal is, but he's really good kind of below the goal line, in the goal line area at creating chances. I don't necessarily think that's how Boston likes to play, so that might hurt him a little bit. But to me, I look at it, and that's your puck carrier, which means he needs to play with guys that don't want to carry the puck, that just pretty much want to go to, like, drive the net and shoot the puck. Because when you're playing with Taylor Hall, you're not scoring off the cycle. You're scoring off the rush. You need guys that can skate with him, and you need guys that can shoot the puck. And I think Jake DeBrusk is capable of both of those things. Charlie Coyle's definitely capable of both of those things.
Yeah.
And so from a Taylor Hall perspective, it's completely unrealistic for him to be putting up 85, 90 points when he's not playing in that top line or in the top power play minutes. I think if he gets 60 points, like you've got to be pretty happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely doable for sure. And yeah, you mentioned with Charlie Coyle, a lot of people were saying with David Krejci moving on, there's going to be a significant drop off at the second line center spot. But last time I checked, Coyle's on pace for like his second most productive offensive season. I think around 50 points. And to me, that's pretty good for a second line center. Is that pretty much like if you're looking at tiers of like first line center, second line center point expectations? What is the expectation there? Is it like 45 to 55 kind of thing for a second line center? Or
I think it depends on what tier you want. So if you look around the league and you look at the elite centers, when Pittsburgh's healthy, they have Crosby, Malkin. Well, you're expecting 100 points out of both.
Yeah.
Toronto, the same with Matthews, Tavares. You're expecting 90 points out of both. Edmonton, I'm expecting 130, quite frankly. But in Boston, you've got the perfection line, one of the best lines in the entire league. It's ridiculous how good they are.
Yeah.
And so you're getting more points from all of them than pretty much most other first lines are getting. So if you're on the second line in Boston, you're not really you're not getting the defensive matchups that the top line is.
True.
So to be fair, like I think Boston, if they want to contend, they need a center that can put up 65 to 70 points in that 2C spot.
Yeah.
I know it's a sore subject, but like drafting Matt Barzal probably would have helped.
Yep, definitely.
But I do think in an ideal world, Charlie Coyle's probably your 3C.
Yeah.
And you want somebody, like I think about it and I'm like, who could be a really good Bruin? Nazem Kadri.
Oh,
like
wow.
if you think about it, think about how much Boston pissed him off in those playoff series. But you think about how Kadri plays. He's offensive. He's going to put up ridiculous numbers already this year. Like he's already at 30 points. Yeah. But he plays with that edge. He plays with that bite. He's an absolute menace to play against. And when you think Boston Bruins hockey, that's what you think. And so I look at it and I'm like, I wonder if you can get a player of that type, then you maybe push Coyle down. There needs to be something there because I'm not convinced Boston has anything coming from the draft pipeline that can really be a solid 2C.
Yeah. And that would include Jack Studnicka as well, I guess.
I think he profiles more as a winger at the NHL level.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I think Jad Studnicka is one of those players. I watched him play in Oshawa quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think to me, he's going to have the most success in the NHL as a winger because it kind of removes some of that defensive responsibility and he can just focus on being that really creative, really talented playmaker for his line mates. And so I look at it and I go, it's not really going to mesh with somebody like Taylor Hall because they're pretty similar in style. Right. You need someone, ideally, who fits the mold of Brat in that kind of hole. And I do think Jake DeBrusk is a fit there.
Yeah, I guess we'll get to see that tonight, see if it's successful. And that'll be interesting to watch for sure. I wanted to ask you a couple more questions just about the Bruins as a whole. So I've been talking a lot about or looking at the underlying numbers. I'm not a advanced stats expert by any means, but I look at kind of, shot attempt differential, shot differential, high danger chance differential at 5-on-5. I see the Bruins as a top 5, top 3 team in all of those categories, yet their shooting percentage at 5-on-5 is, last I checked, I'm not sure if that changed after the Calgary game, but it was like dead last in the NHL at 5-on-5. So in my mind, I wonder, do we look at all those underlying numbers and say that it's only a matter of time before that shooting percentage comes up and they have a bit more success that way? Or is it something in their style of play that is keeping that number down despite all that? Or is it kind of a bit of both? Just in your, expertise, kind of how does that all fit together? It's just so weird that it's just not clicking.
Yeah, I think it could be a number of things. And one of the things that comes to mind is if you look at last year's playoffs, Toronto outchanced, outshot, outplayed Montreal. Like,
Yeah.
every part of the they won everything except the game.
Right.
But one of the things I noticed, and one of the things I'm noticing about Boston, is while they're winning those battles, the actual quality of the chances outside of the top line has not been there. And you are not scoring from the top of the circles if you do not have a shot like Pasternak, Ovechkin, Matthews,
Right.
Laine. Like, you're just not. And so I look at it and I go, the top line, we're probably just going to remove that because that'll correct. They'll be fine. I'm the least worried about them of the entire NHL. I'm the least worried about them. But for everyone else, I don't think that there's enough high quality chances being generated, because you can generate expected goals and chances, but if they're all from the outside at the NHL level, you're not scoring against that. And so I think from a stylistic perspective, I'm not sure that the cycle game really helps Boston right now, because you're not generating enough chances off of that. I did many studies that showed the teams that were most successful were the ones that obviously scored the most, and they scored the most off the rush. And Boston is not generating enough chances off the rush that are of high quality. So there need to be more cross-ice passes. There need to be more high to low passes or low to high passes, kind of to get the defenseman's skates to turn. That'll be when you get your opportunities to have a little bit more time and space to get into the scoring area. To me, I look at it, and when I watch Boston and it's not the top line, it's too seldom that they are getting into the scoring areas where you can really beat teams. And that's a problem.
It's funny you say that, because another issue that just watching this team is that propensity to kind of make the extra pass when there is a shot available. So that kind of both of those things together, I guess it's just kind of being more wise in terms of when to make the pass, when to get that shot on. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. There's always this whole one extra pass thing. And unless you're the elite of the elite, and I'm talking a top 20 player in the league, you should not be passing up a shot from the slot, because I'm not convinced that you can make a better play at that point. If you are not one of the elite passers in the league, a Panarin, a Marner, the perfection line, if you're not one of those guys, I really don't think you should be passing up the high danger scoring opportunities, especially right now when you're slumping. If you get the puck to the high danger scoring area, you need to be shooting that.
Yeah.
And that's super important. That one extra pass a lot of times is where it goes by. And so I look at it and I go, if you get the puck in the high danger scoring area, shoot it and have your teammate driving to the net instead of making that pass, and have them be expecting a loose puck, a rebound, whatever the case may be.
Right. Yeah. That's what's kind of frustrating, is because it has been Pasternak who has been guilty of kind of making that extra pass, and
he needs to shoot the puck.
When he got that shot, he definitely has to shoot for sure.
Yeah, he's not paid to pass.
Yeah. One final question for you about the Bruins. And there's been a lot of talk about the current goaltending duo that they have in place in Ullmark and Swayman, who have been playing very well as of late. And then Tuukka Rask kind of waiting in the wings, maybe going to make a comeback. And there's been a lot of talk about whether it's does a disservice to a guy like Jeremy Swayman to send him to the AHL and bring Rask in. I'm of the mind that, Swayman in particular is still pretty young and has had limited time in the AHL, so it wouldn't be the worst thing for him to come back. Just go with, the best possible players. If Rask wants to come back, then you absolutely bring him back. Is that kind of something that you would echo, or what would be your take on that whole situation?
When I look at goaltending development, I think too often goaltenders are rushed, and that really harms their development. You look at what Ron Hextall did in Philadelphia, and he essentially lost his job for saying, I'm not bringing up Carter Hart because he's not ready yet.
Right.
And Ron Hextall turned out to be right. Like, Carter Hart needed that time, and he was absolutely correct there. And I think when you look at something like that, look at Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. They left him at school, then they left him in the AHL, and they left him there, and now look at Thatcher Demko. I mean, I don't think you can even have an argument that he's very good.
No, yeah.
So for me, I look at it, Swayman, he has been playing well. Yes, like, we're not going to disagree there.
Yeah.
But what we usually see is goaltenders have, when they're new, there's not a whole lot of video on them. And shooters haven't shot on them, so they're not sure of their in-game tendencies. But once you start to get that, that's why we see that kind of second-year regression. We saw it with Carter Hart. We saw it with Mackenzie Blackwood.
Yeah.
Like, I look at it and I go, I think that's sort of what we're doing here. Look at Igor Shesterkin. They left him in the AHL, and I think it's turning out okay for New York.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of Henrik Lundqvist. But they waited and waited. So I think if Tuukka's ready, and do not rush Tuukka back, but if Tuukka's ready, it's sort of like that Henrik Lundqvist Shesterkin thing. I'm not going to sit here and say Swayman is as good as Igor, because that's not fair either.
Yeah.
But make Swayman go to the AHL. Maybe he helps that team out a ton. Maybe he gives them confidence. Maybe they go on a run. And Swayman is the guy, because I think the biggest thing about being an NHL goalie is mental. You have to know how to be the guy, and you don't know how to do that unless you've done it at a different level. So Swayman needs to be the guy at the AHL level to show he can really do that, and then he can come and be the guy in Boston. I think in the playoffs, I think the Bruins are going to make the playoffs. I think you bring them up for the experience, and you know what? If Rask or Ullmark falters, then he's the guy that goes in, whatever the case may be. But to me, you cannot do harm by sending a young goalie down. It's different if he's like 35 or 29, whatever. But this is a young kid with not a lot of AHL experience. I think it would really benefit him to be the guy, and he goes down there and you tell the AHL coach, he's playing 70% of the games. We need him to be the guy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would say if Rask is healthy, he needs to come back, and it doesn't do a disservice to Swayman to send him down by any means. It could be better for him long term, in fact. Rachel, I'm so grateful that you were willing to jump on it and chat this morning. Before you go, I always like to ask people kind of what they're enjoying away from the game, if you have time. Is there anything that you're watching or really into these days apart from hockey that people should know about?
Yeah, so I guess I'm really late to the party here. I started watching Drive to Survive on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
I'm already halfway through
the
season.
Race?
Yeah, I'm already halfway through season 2.
Yeah.
But like growing up, I'm European and like German specifically, so F1 racing is a big thing, especially because of Mercedes. And so I've known about it growing up. Like, I'm not a newbie by any stretch of the imagination. I just didn't watch the documentary, but now I'm like fully addicted. So I've been watching that.
I've been doing I went through that all this past summer. I burned through that, and I knew nothing about F1, but I loved it. It's so good.
Yeah, so I've been doing Drive to Survive. I like outside of hockey. If you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm a pretty big Bayern fan.
You're right.
That's Bayern, TFC. Those are the clubs that I there is no hockey team that I could ever love more than those two soccer teams. Like when you're born into something like that, you not so much TFC, but I'm from Toronto, but with Bayern,
Right.
that's a family affair, and it's a pretty big one. So for me, that's what I'm into. If you want a TV show recommendation, this might be playing my hand a little bit here, but I watch The Bachelor.
Is that on right now, or is it in between, or what? Not till
The Bachelorette, it's like overnight week, so the finale is next week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of like I'm sure you could tell if you go through my mentions on Twitter that hockey can be very stressful for me sometimes.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And so for me, I don't like to watch things away from the game. I really do like to shut off and watch some pretty awful TV, like 90 Day Fiance. Like I'll watch that.
Yeah, nice. All right. Very cool. Well, where can people find your hockey work and hockey coverage right now? Where can people find you on social media as well?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Rachel Doerrie. It's kind of, I guess, pretty simple name to find.
Yeah.
You can find me on the Staff and Graph podcast, and I'm actually writing for the Hockey News now. So you can find me there, and I'll have some pieces out. I'm gonna have a piece coming out about how the NHL should tell the Olympics to kick rocks and go full into the World Cup.
Yeah. And what's your, I guess, can kind of get the sense there, but do you think it's going to happen anyways, that NHL players are going to go, or it's not looking too good, eh?
I don't think it is. I think when you combine the diplomatic issues and COVID and how the Chinese government is kind of handling things, I think we're treading down a very dangerous path right now. And I personally, I'm half Chinese and I love the Olympics. You could not pay me to go to the Olympics right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's all those things together. It's even just the diplomatic boycott. I don't really get the point.
Well, if you're a Bruins fan, and this is a Bruins podcast, David Pastrnak, Patrice Bergeron, and Brad Marchand are all going to the Olympics if the NHL goes. What happens?
Even Rask could go for Finland.
So, what happens if they get COVID and all three of those gentlemen are stuck in China for 5 weeks?
Yeah.
What happens to the Bruins?
Yeah, they're done. There's no chance.
Going back to Edmonton, what happens if Draisaitl and McDavid get caught there? You're done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't see it happening at this point, for sure.
Yeah, but, I don't think it's the right thing to do, and I want I want to see Crosby and McDavid on the same team.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is not the right thing to do to go.
What would they do if NHL players don't go? Just kind of put together
there's
like a mix.
Yeah, there'll be kind of European players that'll go
like Spengler Cup type guys that
essentially so Devin Dubnyk would probably be a goalie that would go. Eric Fair would be a player, like guys that are playing overseas,
right?
Or in the KHL.
Ryan Spooner is a former Bruin on the Spengler Cup team. Maybe he'll
likely
yeah,
I could see something like that. I mean, I think we all want NHL we all want to watch NHL players because those are the best players. Like, given the choice, you want to watch Crosby and McDavid, or you want to watch Ryan Spooner? What are we doing here? But from a safety perspective, do you want to watch those players play on the same team for 2 weeks, or do you want to watch them play in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely in the playoffs, for sure. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for taking some time to chat. It's great to catch up, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yes, for sure. Great to chat with you.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Thanks so much. All right, everybody. That was Locked On Boston Bruins for Tuesday, December 14th. The Bruins playing tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. And we'll see how our boy Jake does there up on the second line. And, what else the Bruins are up to. Tuukka Rask back on the ice as an e-bug, taking some shots. And I think tomorrow might be the deadline for him to sign before going through waivers. And just a lot happening, but I'm grateful to have been able to catch up with Rachel. And hope you enjoy that chat and that you all have a great rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow to recap tonight's game against Vegas. Take care, everybody.